Okay, so Rachel, the finale of season 2 of Yellowjackets has aired. We've both watched it. Should we get into spoilers?
I think that we have no choice but to get
Yes.
into spoilers. Let's lean into it.
Okay. So in the last couple episodes, give me a rundown. What happens in the last couple episodes of season 2 of Yellowjackets?
Well, we're still in our dueling timelines of the teenagers in the wilderness and the older adults, the survivors in their lives. But the survivors in the adult timeline they've all convened at the commune of Lottie's purple people commune, which they never really answer or talk about what the purpose of the purple people commune. I mean, it's all a lot of woo woo.
Yeah.
Connect with yourself mumbo jumbo. But anyway, I'm only saying that because I really didn't love that whole arc, because I felt it didn't give people a lot to do. But I would focus this conversation on the teenagers in the wilderness and what they do to assuage their starvation.
Yes. So at the end of episode 8, the teenagers draw cards. Whichever one of them gets the Queen of Hearts has to run for her life, essentially. And this is all kind of setting our expectations up for Lottie becoming the Antler Queen, which is something that I think I said in the main part of the episode is I think that, everyone is assuming that it's her. Natalie draws the card. She runs. Javi tries to help her and falls through the ice and winds up dying.
The wilderness chose.
And so they,
everyone has arrived at a point where, except for Coach Ben, where they feel that they cannot get away from eating somebody. Someone's going to have to get eaten. And I think that Lottie, who's been beaten almost to death by Shauna.
That's how episode 5 or 6 ends, right? Is that Lottie is beaten within an inch of her life. And
Lottie, assuming that she's going to die, tells Misty not to waste her body if she dies, which is looking like she probably will. Misty takes that to mean that Lottie can't die because all of the girls have essentially turned Lottie into a talisman via her mental health, or lack thereof.
Issues,
she is I think schizophrenic is what they. Is that actually said?
She's on antipsychotics from the beginning of the series,
and she runs out of her antipsychotics and then basically communes with nature, but also might be seeing things because she is mentally ill, and the other girls, but they are in such a hunger daze that they basically just turn to Lottie for leadership.
Right.
And Misty decides that, someone is going to get eaten, because if someone gets eaten, then Lottie will survive.
Right.
Because we need Lottie to survive. And that is how they do this card draw of death.
So the interesting thing about this is something that we talked about a little bit with our interview when we read the interview with the executive producers, where the ethics or the morals of this is that should be relatively clear, right? They don't actually want to kill anybody, so they are allowing random chance to pick the person, and then when that doesn't exactly work, they're allowing the woods, right? They are eschewing the choice to whatever random act could possibly be, so that they don't have to come to terms with the fact that they are choosing to eat.
Yeah, they're rationalizing this action as only people who have been pushed to the very brink of existence could rationalize it. And initially, Natalie is running for her life and given a head start by Travis, who is in love with her, and they have a whole connection. But when Javi, who has not spoken about where he's been for most of season 2 because he gets lost at some point.
Right.
We see that he's been, they don't really explain how
There's
he
like
has survived
underwater,
he's found some kind of bunker in a tree which is unaffected by the cold and the weather, and presumably Javi is going to lead Natalie to safety to this underground tree bunker. But before he can do that, he falls through the ice, and Natalie almost tries to save him, but then the rest of the girls catch up and they're like, no, the wilderness chose, you can't, don't, because someone has to die. Yes. And that ends up being Javi.
And then, so now we can talk about the finale and the musical moments in the finale, of which there are many. So we open the last episode of season 2 with Zombie.
By the Cranberries,
which is as they're returning with Javi's, with their fresh kill. Coach Ben is not super happy with this, and he wants Natalie to come live with him in like the underground tree bunker. Meanwhile, in the present day, everyone convenes on Lottie's commune, including the remaining 6 survivors, Jeff, the 2 cops, and also
Elijah
Wood's back, which is great. And there's this like weird kind of rules of the game comedy of errors where Elijah Wood's like killing people, and Lottie decides that whatever they brought back with them, whatever spirit they brought back with them from the forest, still needs to be satiated, and so they're going to do another hunt. And so extra super duper spoilers. Two of my favorite things happen in this hunt.
Okay.
Thing one is Shauna draws the bad card and she's going to be hunted. And she says, you know that we didn't bring anything back. The thing that we brought back was ourselves. And Lottie says, what is the difference?
Right.
Which I think is the exact right way for the show to play this like supernatural thing. Is like, it does not matter.
Yeah,
the evil is inside of them.
I think that there's a tension even with the audience of this show that expects there to be answers for all the weird stuff that, like, I'll use the dripping that one of the characters hears, and you could explain that away with hunger, or it could be something supernatural.
Right.
I mean, everything that happens to these women and girls in both timelines could be explained away via trauma or supernatural. And I think that viewers really yearn for answers, but I think that it's looking like it, and I think the show is meant to run like over the course of 5 seasons. And
makes sense. That's like usually the kind of the goal.
I read that somewhere that was the goal, but that may never. Didn't we talk about this earlier in part 1 of this episode, where that may just never happen? We may never, like, the point isn't to say whether it's their minds or whether it's supernatural forces, and the answer is in the ambiguity.
You decide. Yeah, they said that they're going to answer whatever they can, and some things are unknowable. The other thing that happened that I'm very thankful for is that in trying to protect her mother, Callie shoots Lottie. One of Lottie's followers holds a gun on all of them, and in trying to defend her friends, Misty accidentally kills Natalie. Adult Juliette Lewis, who I mentioned is my least favorite actor on the show.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
I yelled finally.
Okay, so I've seen multiple reactions about this death. On one hand, I've seen a lot of anger and just like, how could you? And we love Juliette Lewis, and Juliette Lewis is so great. And I am kind of in the middle, so I'm going to be agnostic on that. But I did notice that, like, Missy just keeps killing her best friend.
So this is the thing, right?
And she runs up to Walter, aka Elijah Wood, and was like, I killed my best friend. And I'm like, which one?
So this is the reveal of the true villain of the show, which I think that they did really nicely and relatively subtly as Natalie's dying, which is that Misty is the villain. Misty is the Antler Queen. Misty is the one that they will eventually have to take down. Because she's the one, if going all the way back to season 1, that destroyed the black box. She's the one that when Lottie says, I didn't mean for you to kill Javi and eat him. Like, this is not what I expected. I'm not your leader. She's like, well, we fucking did. So get used to it. And Lottie, adult Lottie, is put into an ambulance and is shot and kind of portrayed as this really sad, broken woman, broken a second time by her interactions with Misty. Misty's the villain.
Beautifully put together. See, I didn't think about any of that, but it makes so much sense. And I look forward to seeing how they explore that in the next, like, Misty's arc, because I was like, wow, she, like, there really is a pot or a pot cover for every or cover for every pot with her and Walter, presumably, like, you know,
she's just because she's the baddie. And the reason that we should talk about Natalie's death, other than it's the true villain reveal, is because we have our last needle drop of the season, and it calls back to our needle drop of the day, which is another Radiohead song.
And this Radiohead song, Street Spirits Fade Out, comes from a different Radiohead album. My favorite Radiohead album, The Bends, from 1990.
My favorite Radiohead album as well.
Is it?
Yes.
I didn't know this about you.
Oh, yeah. Killer Cars is my favorite Radiohead song.
Just as my favorite Radiohead song.
Just is so good. The video for Just is so
good. This has just endeared me to you so much more. As if, I mean, I didn't need to be endeared. But this is so great. No, because I usually have to defend this choice as the Benz.
The Benz OK Computer.
People always say it's like Kid A or OK Computer, and while both of those are great albums, I love the Benz the most because I love guitar-driven
Britpop.
Yes. I'm unapologetic. And I remember when I worked at Spin magazine back in like 2015. I could probably find the article, like it still lives online. All of us, like all the staff, basically like wrote blurbs defending, like, this is why this is the best Radiohead album, and I just did like a whole screed on the Benz. I love the Benz. Yeah. So love that. And the previous Radiohead needle drop that we were talking about is on OK Computer. So I love that they come from two different albums, but I do love some Benz representation.
Yeah, and Radiohead's music is so cinematic in general. We talked a little bit about Exit Music from a Film, which is I would also say is like one of my favorite Radiohead songs, and just a perfect little callback to the first Yellowjacket death sacrifice, let's say, Jackie, and then the last, presumably, Natalie.
True. Would you say though that the first Yellowjacket's death is the Pit Girl death, though?
Well, so the Pit Girl is technically still alive.
Yeah.
She's the one that hears the dripping, presumably.
That's what we think, yeah.
That's what we think.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about the eating of Jackie being a payoff to everything that happens in the first season. And now this scene, which I don't particularly think is very well shot, but like there's some weird things in the scene that they like did some post-conversion slow motion, which makes it look kind of jittery. And it seems like they just kind of, I don't know for why exactly, but it seems like they were kind of rushing through the shooting of that scene. I have no real understanding of why, other than like maybe the writer's strike, but it feels like they would have wrapped way before then.
Yeah, I don't think it's related to the writer's strike only because of timeline, like in the real world. But I'm gonna have to work. It's like gonna take me a while to work through why I didn't love season 2 quite the same way I loved season 1. But I think this has something. This has something to do with it, like just the way that the crescendo, like the chase with the adult women and how that ends up. I do like the idea that there's like a final destination thing being unfulfilled, where like Natalie was a death owed, and
Lottie is a victim, not a leader, which I thought was a good kind of red herring of the season. But the execution of it, I agree with you. The execution of it was just like not quite as strong as the stuff in the first season.
Yeah, there's a desperation that's not there the same way that, like, because the first chase in the previous timeline, there's a clear desperation, whether it's with the weather and the way they all look so like dirty and grown out, and like their clothes are in tatters. Obviously, it won't be the same. It can't look the same in the second, like, present day timeline, but like, what are the stakes exactly? That, like,
I agree with you.
Yeah,
what are the stakes?
Yeah. No one's going to starve. It's the only real stakes I can think of off the top of my head are that Shauna, if Kevin hadn't been killed via a cup of hot chocolate,
hell yeah, brother,
then Shauna might have likely gone to prison, or at least been arrested.
And if your favorite part of the season was the like commune, like rich people acting badly, check out the Jean Renoir movie, The Rules of the Game, which is basically that with a quail hunt. So one really interesting needle drop in the finale is Echo and the Bunnymen's The Killing Moon, which I know from Tiny Darko. That was my first introduction to it.
Me as well.
And it's played twice. Once as a cover by Nouvelle Vague.
Yeah. Like an older cover too.
I didn't realize I thought it was a cover like for the show.
Same. But no, it's Nouvelle Vague are a French band that do mostly new wave covers, and this particular cover is from 2006.
And so they probably also were inspired by Tiny Darko, is my guess. Then the original version at the end, when, last spoiler I promise, Coach Ben has had just about enough of this shit and tries to burn the Yellowjackets alive in their cabin after Natalie. So both of them have to do with Natalie, right? The first one happens when Natalie is anointed the new leader. Lottie steps down, and Natalie is now the one that has been chosen to lead the Yellowjackets. So maybe she's the
quote worst one, which she says to when Coach Ben is trying to convince Natalie to just come live with him in the tree.
Right. Because she's the worst one because she didn't try to save Javi, or she tried to and then stopped. And then once again, when Coach Ben lights the thing on fire, it's because Natalie has rejected him and he has lost the like only ally he felt like he had, or whatever it is, and we get the Killing Moon again as the shelter, the only shelter that the Yellowjackets had, is now crumbling to the ground.
Pretty devastating to watch. The Yellowjackets, like, their only shelter from the winter and the weather, like, completely decimated, burned to the ground. This is like all they have. I mean, are they going to go back and try to live in the plane? Are they
potentially? Or my theory is that they're going to kill and eat Ben. First fucking order of business. And then they're going to find Javi's hiding place and live there. And then all hell's going to break loose with this underground, whatever, series of tunnels. But this is just a guess. So check back in a year and for how wrong I am.
Yeah, I think we'll be talking about this again in 2025.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Which is feel kind of painful, but it's a great needle drop. The Killing Moon. It's a song that's all about like fate versus, like personal choice. And
which is the whole thing, right? Is there a thing guiding our actions, or are we just going nuts?
Yeah, and that's kind of gets at the heart of the episode. There was I want to shout out real quick. I was listening to the Ringers recap of the last episode, and they got into like a really deep conversation about liminal spaces, which is like as English majory as you can get. And do you know what a liminal space is?
Is that like the place between the conscious and the subconscious?
Close. It's basically just a catch-all for the space in between.
Well then if we're talking about liminal spaces, we've got to talk about this like secret cave of wonders that Ben finds.
And that's definitely one, because I'd like to see what else lies within that secret wonder tree cave. But they were in this context, the Ringer guys or women were talking about how the ritual of like Natalie's picking like the card ritual and like anointing her and like putting the heart necklace on her, like how rituals can be liminal spaces. And I don't want to steal the Ringer's thunder and like recap that whole thing. Because honestly, they really got into it. They got super academic, and I was so here for it. They like were reading quotes all about liminal spaces, but it's probably best to go and check that out too. Like if you really want to dig into Yellowjackets, if you have Yellowjackets fever and want to like just
expand,
go all out and then have an English major itch scratched, I recommend. Yeah.
I agree, and I think the anointing and all of those rituals, all those superstitions that they have created are like those abdications of responsibility, so that they can pretend like they're not making the choices, then it is fate. And nothing's more dangerous than someone making choices and then retroactively saying, well, fate led me to this point.
I just want to read real quick. I'm going to define liminal space.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Liminal is from the Latin word limen, which means threshold. A liminal space is the time between what was and next. It is a place of transition, a time of waiting, and not knowing the future. Richard Rohr describes the space as where we are betwixt and between the familiar and the completely unknown. There alone is our old world left behind, where we are not yet sure of the new existence. That's a good space where genuine newness can begin.
Well, it seems like Yellowjackets has left us in a liminal space for at least another year while they write and film season 3. I look forward to seeing what they come up with that will like haunt my nightmares.
WGA strong.